last 10 years of his life, Tim's father had Alzheimer's disease. Despite the devoted care of Tim's mother, he had slowly deteriorated until he was unable to speak. He was fed, clothed, and cared for as if he were a very young child. As Tim and his brother grew older, they would stay with their father for brief periods of time while their mother took care of the needs of the household. One Sunday, while she was out doing the shopping, the boys, then 15 and 17, watched football as their father sat nearby in his chair. Suddenly, he slumped forward and fell to the floor. Both sons realized immediately that something was terribly wrong. His color was gray and his breath uneven and rasping. Frightened, Tim's older brother told him to call 911. Before he could respond, a voice he had not heard in 10 years, a voice he could barely remember, interrupted. "Don't call 911, son. Tell your mother that I love her. Tell her that I am all right." And Tim's father died. Tim, now a cardiologist, looked around the room at the group of doctors mesmerized by his story. Because he died unexpectedly at home, the law required that we have an autopsy, he told the group quietly. My father's brain was almost entirely destroyed by this terrible disease. For many years, I have asked myself, who spoke? I have never found the slightest help from any medical textbook. I am no closer to knowing this now than I was then. But carrying this question with me reminds me of something important, something I do not want to forget. Much of life can never be explained, but only witnessed. Much of life can never be explained, but only witnessed. Stephanie Paulsell teaches at Harvard Divinity School, and one of her favorite courses is one she teaches with first-year seminary students in their very first semester. The course is called Intro to Ministry Studies, and it's really more of an identity formation experience than anything else. Professor Paulsell has used a variety of readings to provoke discussion in this introductory course, but she's noticed that whatever she chooses, at some point, every group of students begins to wrestle with the same anxious question. A question about what one of her students called faking it. Can I be a minister, they wonder, if my beliefs are not settled? If I act as if I believe things I'm not sure I believe, or take on work in ministry that I don't feel capable of doing, or rely on the Psalms to speak comfort, a comfort that I cannot feel for myself, am I being inauthentic? In short, am I faking it? It's not just a question for seminarians, is it? More than one of you has come and said something like this to me. I want to join this congregation, but I don't know what I believe about the divinity of Jesus. Or I don't believe that Jesus was divine, at least in any way that the rest of us are not also. If I join this congregation, am I a hypocrite? Will I be faking it? I've been abused in the past by the church. It's something many of us have experienced. And I've come to believe that often the church does more harm than good in the world. But something feels different here. If I join this congregation and participate in the mission of this congregation, am I a hypocrite? Will I be faking it? It's a very important question. It's a very important question for those of us who come to faith with our eyes and our minds open. It's a very important question for the church to hear and wrestle with and be held accountable to. But unfortunately, it seems to me that we so often embrace a false dichotomy, a false choice in seeking the answer to that question. Either we go the route of fundamentalism, which says that you must believe every word written in the Bible, or everything that the church teaches. You must profess to be certain of things that you are not at all certain about, or you will go to a hell that fundamentalists are sure exists, despite all the evidence of a loving God around us. In essence, to admit any uncertainty is to betray the faith and to endanger your mortal soul. On the other end of the spectrum lies an attitude of utter nihilism, nothingness. It just doesn't matter at all, many of these folks say. It's all a bunch of made-up hooey anyway. All those biblical stories, the institution of the church itself, and the so-called mysteries of the faith, they were all cynical attempts to establish power for a few, and not a witness to something that was profoundly true. In the first view, science doesn't matter. We're called to embrace what we don't know as fact. In the latter view, scientific knowledge is everything, and we're called to completely dismiss what cannot be explained as facts that we just haven't discovered yet. Either way, in either extreme, it seems to me we're only accountable to what we know, or what we pretend to know, even if we don't. But what if the life of faith? What if the life of faith is more about being faithful to what we do not know? What if we understood the Christian path to be not so much about spewing forth what we think we know about the holy, but it is about being faithful to what we do not know? What if the life of faith is less like balancing your checkbook and a lot more like creating a piece of art? A piece of art whose shape and form you do not yet know. A piece of art which actually in reality is shaping you. And it is here in that place that I find the person of Mary to be a profound assistance to us on our journey. Protestants like us would do well to rediscover the faith and life of this incredibly spiritually alive woman who gave birth to the very path of life that we embrace in the fullness of Jesus. It seems to me that the profound witness that Mary gave to the world world was the example of her choice. Her conscious choice, her conscious decision to be in relationship with what she did not know. Mary received news of something that she could not explain. Her life to that point had given her no means of making sense of what was happening inside of her. But rather than trying to tame or domesticate this new experience by shoving it back into pre-existing categories, or rather than dismissing this news by suggesting that because it could not be explained, it could not be real, Mary chose to be faithful to what she did not know or understand. Let me be clear. I am not suggesting that this story of virgin birth, is to be taken literally. On the contrary, for me, it is far too important a story for that simplistic approach. Nor am I suggesting what is often said about Mary based on this story, namely that she is some kind of passive recipient of God's plan for her life. On the contrary, she has offered more than one question of protest. You gotta be kidding me, actually, is what she said. That's what she said to God's angel. You gotta be kidding me, with maybe a few other choice words thrown in. I haven't slept with the first man. Do you need a bit of education about how these things happen? Maybe it, I don't know, maybe it works a little differently in the angelic realm. I don't know. But apparently, even in the midst of this startling news, Mary did not stop thinking and questioning. She never did that. But neither did Mary give in to the heresy that her brain was the only possible source of information. And therefore, she chose to stay in relationship with what she did not know. Our congregation's mission statement begins by describing us as a congregation seeking to be faithful to what we do not know. It states that at Congregational Church, and I quote, we face issues of faith openly and honestly. Openly and honestly. Like Mary, this statement frees us to be ourselves. You don't need to pretend that you know what you don't know around here. And you don't need to pretend that what you don't know doesn't matter. In this congregation, we call upon one another to be faithful to what we do not know, to wrestle with the questions of faith as if the questions themselves were more important than whatever answers we might find. In this congregation, we call upon one another to engage a world that we do not fully understand, and in the process, to resist the temptation to make things black and white, when it's really full of shades of gray everywhere. Or even better yet, when it is a glorious, complicated color collage like this beautiful weaving that stands behind me Sunday after Sunday. It's a perfect backdrop for preaching. I do not believe that we still remember Mary today because of what she knew about the holy. I believe we remember Mary today because of her incredible faithfulness and tenacious commitment to holding those things within her that she did not fully know. She gives hope. She gives hope to all of us who are afraid that our only choices in life are either to give up or to fake it. She stands as a profound example of faith for all of us, as one who actively engages the questions that life presented to her, as one who did not accept forced answers imposed on her from outside, but rather gave the questions time to gestate. Time to gestate in her own body, taking the time that she and the questions needed until the pangs of doubt and struggle gave way to the time to deliver. Time for birthing what she could feel in her own womb, even when she could not adequately form words to describe it. Mary stands as a holy icon for all of us of something very important, something that we do not want to forget, namely, that much of life can never be explained, but only faithfully